This is one of a series of 5 webinars designed to teach you how to facilitate a workplace mediation. My name is Faoagali and I am the Director and Principal of Emverio Workplace Solutions. These series of webinars are designed for our clients primarily, so human resources, employers, managers, anyone who might be called upon to facilitate a workplace mediation and doesn't have a framework or a model or might not have ever done one before. Just want to cover a few examples of workplace conflict. You can see them here. There's probably plenty more, but these are the main ones that we see. And it doesn't really matter what industry you're in, it doesn't matter what size of organization you work for, whether it's a multinational or small not-for-profit, these same themes seem to occur regardless. Having to share resources, so if you have to share a vehicle, there can be conflicts about, the petrol, for example, not being refilled, the car not being cleaned, smells in the car, takeaways, that type of thing. Or even if you work in a laboratory, even sharing the equipment. It could, like sharing resources can be really complex if there isn't clear guidelines around how to do that and if it isn't administered in a fair way. Professional disagreements, very common that people have different ways about how to resolve an issue or different views about their expertise. Is really normal, and most of us can navigate it, but from time to time we might come across a situation where it cannot be resolved and starts to impact the workplace relationships or maybe even leak out into your relationships, personal relationships at home. Change is always a factor where there's new things going on. For example, you might get new people in, you may be implementing a new policy, there may be a new process, and you can just look for yourselves at the most recent examples, say COVID-19, and the impact that had on your team. So that can always cause a bit of agitation. Unclear role description. So if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to try and work it out yourself, and inevitably you will stand on someone's toes, and that can be the source of ongoing and escalating conflict. Interpersonal and relationship bias. So we may be working with people who we share different values, different religious beliefs, different political beliefs, different family values, different postcodes even, different tastes in food. And these things can all form filters in the way that we receive and process information. Miscommunication. So you might feel like someone's communication, whether it's verbal or non-verbal, is inappropriate, but for that person it may come as a surprise to them. So miscommunication is about the intention underlying that communication may not necessarily be aligned with how a person communicates with you. Physical environment, you just need to look at the open plan office situation and impact that had on people's capacity to be able to negotiate private matters, and that's had a huge impact on how people can relate from time to time. Capacity to reflect individually and as a group. So a lot of the time when we're dealing with people in conflict, there really is it's not like two sides of the story. It's like most times people are reflecting and projecting exactly the same emotions. So you might feel frustrated, guaranteed the other person is feeling frustrated as well. And your capacity to be able to accept that and shift that will make a huge difference in your ability to manage the workplace conflict. But if there's no capacity there, it can become a escalating conflict very quickly. Let's talk a little bit about mediation models and what these series of webinars will cover. So this series of webinars covers a specific model that we use at Emverio, which is based on the facilitative model of mediation. Just so you know that there are multiple different mediation models. There's transformative mediation, there's transactional mediation, there's arbitration, there's conciliation. There is so many different models of mediation. I can't even tell you them all. But there are plenty out there. So the model that we use is an adaptation from the National Accreditation Model here in Australia. Now, the reason that it's adapted is because the model that is used here in Australia through the National Accreditation Mediation Standards Board is based on some assumptions that don't apply in the workplace. For example, most of the mediations that we conduct are before the employer decides to implement a more formal process. So it's in the informal arena. It's an attempt to resolve the outstanding issues such that the parties can continue to work together into the future. So the mediations that we do are very relationship based. That does not mean that you're going to leave. We're going to make you sing Kumbaya and hold hands, okay? But it does mean that we recognize that most of the time you'll be leaving the mediation and you'll have to work with them the next day, perhaps even within the next hour. So that's really a different assumption from what the mediation model is based on. The model that we use at Emverio is a day model for a normal kind of two-person with the employer. So we do the intakes in the morning. The intakes are the one-on-one sessions that we have with the participants and the employer, and then the joint session is in the afternoon. Typically, it goes from like 9:30 to 12:30. Each person gets an hour each with the mediator, and then the joint session, the employer usually doesn't attend that. It's just the participants who are in conflict that come to that in the afternoon. So that's typically what our mediation model looks like. However, you might need to adapt that to suit your particular circumstances. For example, sometimes we get more than two people in conflict. Sometimes it can be a whole team. Sometimes it can be three people. Under those circumstances, we would still recommend that we speak with people individually and then map out a structure of conflict resolution that's going to work. So it would be very no, it would not be best practice just to facilitate a workshop or mediate a conflict workshop without actually having some context and some input from the participants themselves. Now, so the model that we're going to teach you in the next 5 series covers what you need to cover in an intake, and that can be with one or many people. And it's going to look at the model that we use for a joint session. Now, as a manager or HR person conducting the mediation, you can truncate it and adapt the model to suit your particular circumstances. I'm going to teach you what we do as external mediators, okay? And then you can work out what's going to work for you, all right? Okay, well, that's the beginning of the introduction, and the next sessions will start off at looking at the intakes. Thank you for your time if you got to the end of this video, and I look forward to working with you as we progress. Any questions, please just email me, come visit our website, download resources, and I look forward to working with you over the next 5 series. Thank you.